Hi, this is Rex with the latest edition of Petong Points podcast, coming to you from the beautiful studios of universalexports.co. A big hello to Sally up on Mission Beach, to the Dodo Club all over there, all of our Petong friends in New Zealand, Baz Wing in the UK, and of course everyone from everywhere else. This time we check players' popularity votes. Will you be on the list? Look at why Marco is a Platini. Find out where to get some quick tips. And we work out why I lost my 2 metres. So pointers, shooters and mids, lend me your ears as we launch into episode 12 of Petong Points podcast. Last time we looked at some of the fantastic talent presented on Facebook by the photographers we have in the Petong fraternity. Having been a member of the judging panel for the Australian Institute of Professional Photographers for 5 years, I would like to make a special mention of the image placed by Giselle Whiteacre from Novar Gardens Petong Club for her beautiful presentation of a custard croissant with beach views of Henley Beach, South Australia. It wasn't so much the lighting or composition, but crikey, that croissant looked good. It might also have something to do with me not yet having had breakfast. What are your thoughts? Send your comments on what you think are the best photos by our Petonkistas to audiorexy@gmail.com. That's audiorexy@gmail.com. Hey, while we're speaking of Giselle, you may recall that in episode Nonus, that's episode 9 of Petong Points, we heard from Giselle on her commentary on the Novar Nationals video of 2021. Well, the PFA is pleased to announce that at its last meeting they filled a casual vacancy by inviting Giselle onto the board. And here is what they had to say about Giselle. Despite being an Australian and technically a South Australian, although she considers herself to be slightly more Tasmanian, Giselle has spent as much of her life outside the country as in it. She has lived in Japan, Korea, Dubai, Vietnam, and most recently the UK, where she was running her own business. Her specialist areas are marketing, journalism, and copywriting. Born of good Petong stock, she used to play a couple of times a year when visiting Hobart. It wasn't until London that she began playing consistently with London Petong Club. She spent several years on the committee and was part of a national committee promoting women in Petong. She returned to Australia in February and moved to Adelaide in July, inspired largely by the national championships hosted by Novar Gardens Petong Club, where she is now a member. Congratulations, Giselle, on your appointment as well as your croissant. In a recent game in which I was participating, I made a comment about a situation on the piste regarding movement of the ring. As it happens, Guy Messier, a member of Camberwell Petong Club and umpire for about 7 years standing, was on an adjoining piste. Not wishing to allow me to continue embarrassing myself with my misinterpretation of the rules, he set about explaining the correct interpretation of the situation. As I believe that a great number of my fellow players think the same as I did on this issue, I thought it was wise to get it straightened out properly. Guy was happy to come on the show and explain the facts. First of all, I asked about his background in the game of Petong. Guy, a little bit about your background. How did you get into Petong? Why did you get in Petong? And where did you start?
Well, it was just by luck. We were driving along in Hawthorne and we saw a few people playing pétanque. I didn't know. So that was 2012. I didn't even know there was pétanque in Victoria until then, you know. Really, I saw people playing, so we thought we'd stop. So we had a game, then went away, and that was, I don't know, earlier in the year. And then in July, my partner, Marianne, bought me a license at the new club because by then they'd moved to Camberwell. So I got a license and that's when I started to play. So really 2012, July.
Judging by your accent, you played before?
No, I'd never played before. I played another type of bull game, which is called Lyonnaise in France.
That's the one where you run up and throw the ball?
To shoot, yes, but not to point.
Oh, okay.
So it's a bigger ground, bigger surface you get to play. You play between 9 and 13 meters.
Right.
And you do a lot of the grounds are way, there's no stones on the ground, it's all sand. And it's a bit more like bocce, the top of
Sure.
the type of ground you use. But yeah, you can run to throw your ball, but everything is always marked.
Yep.
You've got to announce what ball you're going to shoot. If you don't fall within 50 centimeters, everything is put back in place. So it's quite different. I did that for a couple of years when I was about 16 years old.
Currently, you're an umpire, is that correct?
Yes, I'm an umpire, yes, 6 or 7 years, something like this.
Now, the reason I've contacted you, Guy, something happened on the piece when we were playing. It just so happened you were on the adjacent piece of the piece that I was playing on. We had a reasonably new person playing with us. At the completion of one of the ends, the newbie said to me, "Oh, can we pull the ring back further?" And I said, "Yes, you're allowed to take it back 2 metres." You obviously overheard that comment and made a comment back to me which suggested that wasn't the correct answer. I would guarantee about 95% of all the members of the club that I belong to would believe that the correct answer is yes, you can pull it back 2 metres. Can you explain to me and our listener why that isn't a correct statement?
I've got no idea where this belief came from in the first place. Maybe it did exist a long time before I got into pétanque, but since I've been into pétanque, the rule has always been that you could move the circle until you got maximum distance you're allowed to play. So, for example, you can play between 6 and 10 meters. If you want to move the circle 3 meters because you want to play 10 and you've only got 7 meters available, then you can move it 3 meters back.
If I have more than 10 metres or 10.5 metres, I guess, I'm not allowed to move the circle.
That's correct. That's as long as you've got the distance in any direction, the distance required, so the 10.5 meters, because now it's 50 centimeters from the back line,
Yep.
you cannot move it. You cannot move the circle. So if you've got your 10.5 meters available, that's it.
Thank you for straightening that out. And most of us think it's discretionary, that we can pull it back if we feel like it. So getting this straight, if we have sufficient distance to play the jack, which is 10.5 metres, we are not allowed to move the ring.
That's correct. If you've got your 10.5, that's
Yep.
it. You've got to play.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for clearing that up, and I'm glad you have. Well, a lot of people that I know are going to be surprised when they hear that this is the actual situation. Guy, you mentioned you've been an umpire for something like 7 years or so. What's the weirdest situation that you've had to umpire in?
What I've come across, not often, but a few times, like an equal point.
Oh, yeah.
You can't decide who's holding the point. Even with the special tool we use, we couldn't even decide where there was a point. But in that case, it just either if it's the last ball, it's a cancel. If there's more ball to play, whoever played last,
Yes.
keep on playing or plays again.
So, Guy, can I thank you very, very much for your time and your knowledge. It's greatly appreciated. And not just myself, but our listener is going to be delighted in hearing the outcome of that situation.
Well, I'll be listening to it.
Thank you very much for your time.
No worries.
Take care now. Cheers.
No worries. See you, Rex. Bye.
Zone Pétanque and Decathlon have brought out their second edition of the list of Best Pétanque Player for 2021 as voted by internet users. There is a trophy and the votes came exclusively from the internet. From a total of 784 votes, these are the results. 0.3% Christophe Sariol. 0.4% went to David Riviera. 0.5% to Emmanuel Lucien and Philippe Ziegler. 0.6% of the vote went to Kevin Malbec. 1% only went to Stéphane Robineau. 1.7% to Benji Renault. 2.4% went to Ludovic Montoro. 2.9% to Christian Fazino. 3.8% to Henri Lacroix. 7% to Diego Risi and Philippe Souchon. 8.4% to Michael Bonetto, and 12% of the vote went to Philippe Quinte. 21.6% to Johan Cousin, and guess who got the top vote of 29.8%? Yes, Dylan Rocher. Who do you think should have been on that list? Send your comments to audiorexy@gmail.com. Here's Jerry explaining what a Platini is and why Marco Foyer is regarded as one.
Hello, Rex. How are you?
Jerry, I'm really well. What is a Platini? Marco Foyer, the Platini of Pétanque.
Yeah, good question. That's a reference to Michel Platini, who was a great football, played for the French team between 1976 and 1987. He is considered, one of the best players ever. He's still around, actually. He was a national coach for many years. He's now involved in FIFA, I think.
You're going to talk to us about Marco Foyer?
Yes, Marco Foyer, because we talked a little bit about Fasino a couple of episodes ago. You had some questions on Marco Foyer last time. I suppose, to start off from when he was young, something that not very many people know, in 1966, at the age of 13, he was the French national champion in the 600-metre sprint. He was actually selected to race in the 800 metres the following year.
I wouldn't have thought of him as a sprinter.
Well, no, I mean, especially when you see him now, he's probably in his early 70s now. He's put on a little bit of weight over the years, obviously, but...
Bit like me, I think, Jerry. No one would believe that I was in the running for the Olympics in the high jump and hurdles one. Yeah, I really was. And you look at me now and you go, no.
Well, I think that's probably true to some extent of all of us.
Anyway, enough about me. Please continue on Michael.
He's been playing for a long, long time. He's been champion of Europe in the veterans in 2019, 6 times winner of the Mondial La Marseillaise. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. 7 times champion of France and 1-time world champion in 1992, and that was playing with Fasino and Daniel Renard.
Certainly a good record.
That's it. And, there's umpteen other titles, that he's got. I think he's got 2 from New York. I haven't made a note of those, but his resume is very impressive. I mentioned the Mondial La Marseillaise. As I say, he was the 6 times winner of that, and he's come very close to winning it a 7th time. Never quite made it. I don't want to go into too much detail on this. We might make this a subject of a podcast.
Sounds excellent.
I'll just say, it's played over 5 days. There's generally over 10,000 players and some 200,000 spectators.
Wow.
It's a very big tournament, and it's played through the parks, and then I think on the final day they play in front of the fort.
And when did he first win this one?
I believe, yes, 1974 was the first year that he won this. And I'm glad you asked that because, there's an interesting anecdote attached to this, because at the time he was doing his military service in Paris. I believe they knew that he'd gone down. He probably didn't think he was going to make it to the final. On the last day, he was expected back at his barracks. Having made it to the final, he thought, well, I've come so far, I'll carry on. But as you can imagine, he was accused of desertion.
Oh, goodness.
The tournament organisers contacted the colonel who was in command of his barracks in Paris. The colonel, his reply was, okay, Marco Foyer can play in the finals, but if he loses, he'll be going straight to solitary confinement when he gets back.
Well, that's a bit of an incentive in its own, isn't it?
Oh, isn't it? Yeah.
Wow. So fortunately he won.
Yes, he won, yes, and all as well.
Very good.
But certainly would be preying on your mind, I imagine, as you're playing.
Just a tad, I think. Now, last time we spoke about records and things, he came up as holding the record for the most number of bulls shot in an hour.
Yes. This is not the 1,000 bull in an hour, which we also have talked about. That record is held Christian Fasino, who did 992 hits out of 1,000. And I think he did that in 55 minutes and 11 seconds. But no, Marco Foyer, his record is for the greatest number of bull shot and hit in an hour. So there's no 1,000 bull limit.
Yep.
In any case, the actual statistics are he threw 1,740 bull.
Yep.
He got 1,486 hits. And that included 549 carol.
More than a number of lifetimes of Mike Heroes, that's for sure.
It was certainly quite impressive, isn't it?
Indeed.
He actually did play, I think it was in 1993. He also played in the 1,000 bull competition that we just mentioned.
Yep.
But he was actually a stand-in for a player who had to pull out.
Oh, okay.
And I think he only had something like 8 days' notice, especially when you're at that level. When you're approaching a competition like that, you'd be practicing and honing your skill to some degree.
Absolutely. A fair bit of training, one would think, yeah.
That's right. And so, with only 8 days' notice to get ready for it, he scored, I think it was 981 hits out of 1,000. So that's
incredible.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
That's right.
Especially remembering that the record was 992 by Christian Fatinot.
Unbelievable.
That competition still goes on these days. It's now a team thing. So you have 10 players. They throw 100 bully. And I mean, it's good to see all the different players. But it's a shame that the original format has been lost.
That's right. It almost makes them turn out to be wimps. I mean, they're only throwing 100 bulls each. Gee.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Anyway, back to Marco a bit more. Tell us more about him himself.
There are people who watch him play these days. He's a pointer. He's a very good pointer. In an interview, he said that for 3/4 of his career, he was a shooter. So he started off as a shooter.
Right.
The things we've just been talking about sort of support that view. He was a very good shooter. But then he moved to the middle, and now he plays as a pointer.
Right.
But he can still shoot very well. I watched the video of one of his later games. I think it was a game of doubles. The veterans were him and Christian Fatinot, and they were playing the French national team, Philippe Duchot and Guy Rocher.
Yep.
It was an interesting game. Guy Rocher and Philippe Duchot won the game. It was close, and the last 4 ends, the ends were going badly for Foyot and Fatinot. Marco Foyot actually shot the coche out on 4 consecutive ends. It was quite amazing, And he tried to do it a 5th time on the final end, and he just missed it.
Yeah, certainly got some style about him.
He's a bit of a showman, and the commentators generally seem to like him. They wear microphones these days, so you can hear what they're saying. In that game, I remember he kept on going on about the fact that they were up against the 2 best shooters in the world, and there's a certain comic effect.
But recently I was watching one of the videos of him. It could even have been that game. And they were not arguing, but having words about something. And he was supposed to have shot, and he obviously went over his 60 seconds time.
Oh, yes.
And the umpire came up to, tell him and flash a card at him and things like that. And he just ignored the umpire and continued on going whatever he's doing. It was like, no, I'm playing. I'll do it my way if you don't mind. Rules don't count for me.
Yes, it sounds very much like him, actually. But I'm not sure how that works. I've got to feel they're quite prepared sometimes to get the 1 yellow card for going over their 60 seconds. I assume the counter goes back to 0 after that, and they could get another card if they take seconds in it.
The bottom line about this, he is the only French player who's lived exclusively from playing pétanque.
As far as I know, all the other pétanque players, certainly in France, have been amateurs in the sense that they perform a regular job.
All of those facts and figures are just mind-boggling. And it's good to see every sport should have someone like that right at the top.
And as you mentioned, Rex, seen a video of delivering training in state, and there's a few of those videos, but he has done a lot of training, and that's part of how he makes a living. He sells videos and paraphernalia, a lot of merchandise that he sells. It's good for him, well done, and it's good for the sport. He's been a great ambassador for the sport. I believe he's actually been to Australia, and that would have been connected with pétanque at some stage. I couldn't find any actual record of where or when precisely.
Maybe one of our listeners out there might be able to recall something and let us know. If anyone out there in our listening world is aware of when Marco was over here, please let us know and we can put it up.
Yes, that would be great. We could maybe send a letter to him and ask him over again.
Indeed. Maybe I should ring him, see if he'll have a chat with us, Jerry. A 3-way chat. I don't think he speaks English, though, does he? Or doesn't speak it very well? Or chooses not to?
Yeah, I think he probably can speak more than he might let on, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We can meet him halfway with French. Sounds good, Rex.
All right, Jerry. Look, that's been fantastic. And thank you so much for digging up all that detail about a man, as you say, is the leader of Patong and promotes it not only for himself, but for the whole world and Patong generally, which is just fantastic.
Yeah, he's one of those, in finishing, you'd say he's maybe a little bit larger-than-life characters.
Yep.
When you watch him play, even today, he's got a very, very good style of pointing. He's got a good style of shooting as well. No two styles are quite the same. Very, very interesting to watch him play.
Something for us all to aspire. All right, Jerry, look, we better leave it there. I thank you once again. Always enjoy it, and I love the facts and the figures. Just brilliant, Jerry.
You're welcome, Rex. Thank you very much.
Take care. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
This week, I entered into a qualifying event for the state shooting titles. A shooter, I am not. Well, I used to be a state champion with a 9mm semi-auto handgun, but that's another story. So at the last minute, I thought I would seek some good advice. I dismissed those that told me not to enter at all and searched further on good old Coach Google. Here I found a series called Learn with a Champion by Sylvain Dubriel, who was indeed a world champion. In this series, he reviews the fundamentals of the sport and explains in a clear, easy-to-follow manner, enhanced with excellent visuals. The wonderful thing with this series, though, is that each show is less than a minute and a half. I give this series 5 stars. It's worth checking out. Search the internet for Learn with a Champion by Sylvain Dubriel. Well, there you go, the end of another round. Let's hope you are on the 2022 list of best players from the internet. Do some photography. Watch the Platini or Petonk on the internet. Watch and learn with a champion. And watch out for those 2 meters. If you'd like to contribute to Patong Points podcast, contact me, Rex, at audiorexy@gmail. Try again. If you'd like to contribute to Patong Points podcast, contact me, Rex, at audiorexy@gmail.com. To be sure you don't miss an episode, subscribe to Patong Points on your favourite podcast app. Rex out.
You're a good man, Rex.